Kia ora, Year 9. Here's part 2 of the JAF practice for stats. I'm going to start at question 6. I'm going to try and keep this reasonably snappy, so make sure that you've had a go at the questions, hopefully beforehand, or at the very least that you're doing them with me as I do them in the video. You're not going to learn unless you're actually doing maths, right? Just watching videos on its own is not going to be enough. So here's question 6. And we're going to start with some more practice at mean, median, mode and range, but I'm going to go a little bit faster than in the last video. So the first thing that I want to do, because I know I'm going to be finding the median, is I need to get the numbers into order. So I'm going to pause the video while I do that, and you can do that too. Okay, so there we are. They're nicely in order now. They're much easier to see what's going on. Now I can straight away see the mode because I've got two values in here of 19, and I've got two values in here of 25. So the mode will be, there will be two of them, 19 and 25 years. And that's what we call bimodal data. Okay, two modes. The next thing we're going to look at is the range. That's also really easy to work out. The range is the biggest minus the smallest. So that's 25 minus 11, which is 14 years. Next, we'll look at the median. Now, the median's the middle value. So the first thing I have to do is count up how many people we've got in the group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right, 9 people. So there are some different ways to do this. Some of you will be able to visualize this really easily. We want to find the middle person. So if you can see it, you can think about 4 here and 4 here and 1 in the middle. The other way to do it is to say, well, what's half of 9? Well, that's 4.5. So we do the blocks of 4 either side, and then we get the person in the middle, right? The other way to do it is to do what we did in class, which is to cross off in pairs until we hit the middle one. And that's a nice way to do it if you're not quite as confident. So we've got 11 and 25 there. Cross those off, cross those off, cross those off, and we're left with 20. So the median here, whichever way you do it, obviously, is 20 years. Now, lastly, we have to be able to find the mean. The mean comes from adding up all of the values and dividing by how many there are. Okay, so here we're going to add up 19 plus 20. So obviously we can add from either list. It doesn't really matter. But we add them all up, and we're going to get 178 in total. So the mean is equal to 178 divided by 9. Often I just write that as a fraction, okay, because we know that that's exactly the same thing. And that gives me 19.777 recurring, but we're asked to round because that would be silly. So we're going to have 19.8 years. Now, why is it 0.8? Well, it's 0.8 because I want to round to one place after the decimal. And so I look at that next value, the 7. I concentrate on that. And I say if it's 5 or above, I round up, right? So that's my mean. All right, on to question 7. Now in question 7, we have to think about the purpose of what we're doing. We are finding the 3 measures of the centre, the mean, median, and mode, and then we have to say which one would be the most useful for the shop owners. So this is data from a shoe shop. So again, I'm going to start by putting it in order. I'll pause while I do that. Okay, so here's the data in order. The mode is pretty obvious in here. The mode is size 6. And what's the median? Well, I've got 16 here. So sample size is 16. So we're going to divide that into 2 blocks of 8. 8 people here and 8 people here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh, how many have I done? 6, 7, 8. There's 8 there and 8 there. So the median is halfway in between those two values. So the median is 6. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. It's easy here because the numbers here are exactly the same thing. Otherwise, we'd go halfway in between those values. Lastly, we have to find the mean, right? So if you add up the numbers and then divide by 16, what did I get for that? I'm just going to do the answer on this because I think most of you watching this can do this, and I don't want this going on for too long. So it's 5.625, right? So that's the total of all those numbers divided by 16. So which one of those is the most useful? Well, it's very unusual that the mode is the most useful, but in this case I think it is because the shop owner has to figure out what sizes to order. So what does he care about? Well, or she, he or she cares about not running out of shoes. And most people who come into the shop have got size 6. So if I were the shop owner, I would be using the mode to decide I had to always have size 6 shoes in stock. Okay, so that's question 7 done. On to question 8, which is very similar in format. We have to calculate the mean, mode, and median, and then we have to say which one is the most useful indicator. So I really like this question because it illustrates one of the problems we get when we use the mean to measure the centre. Right, so let's pause and put those numbers in order. I'm not going to write the thousands out every time. Okay, I'm just going to write 30, 45, and so on. Okay, so there we go. We've got the income figures, salaries for 6 people, and there is no mode, right? These values are all different. So there's no mode, but we can find the median, right? So the person in the middle, and we've got 6 people, so we've got 3 people here and 3 people here. So the median is going to be halfway between those two numbers. Now you can work that out like this. It's the average of the two numbers, right? Or you can just look and go, what's halfway between 36 and 40? It's 38. Now that's how I would do it, and I think how most of you would do it. The last one we've got here is the mean, right? So when we work out the mean, we add up these numbers and we get a total of $394,000 earned divided by 6 people, right? And that tells us that the mean is $65,667, or if I were rounding that to 3 significant figures, I'd go $65,700. Right, so now let's look at which one is the best measure of centre. So that median should not say 38, sorry, it should say 38,000. Okay. Right, there wasn't any mode. Does it make sense to use the mean here? Even though we've grown up thinking, oh, the mean is the average, it tells us the centre. Well, it doesn't really here because we've got one very happy person, well, possibly, earning $225,000. And we've got all the other people earning amounts from $18,000 to $45,000. So we really don't want to say the mean is a good measure of the centre of that data set, right? It's useful information, but it doesn't really give you an idea of the typical salary because we've got all of these people here and then we've got this one person out here. Now we call that an unusual value, or sometimes we call it an outlier, right? And we're going to talk about those quite a lot over the next few years when we do statistics. And when we're doing stats, when we sum things up, we don't want to be very heavily influenced by strange and unusual things. Okay, so here the best one to use is the median, because it gives the best sense of a typical salary in New Zealand based on this sample. Right, on to the next question. Right, here we've got the number of tries scored by a rugby team in 6 games. So we've got 6, 0, 3, 2, 2, and 5. Now we don't have to figure out the mean or the mode or anything like that, but we're told that the rugby team play one more game, and then the mean number of tries scored increases to 4. So what are we going to have? Well, we've had 6 games. So in the end, the total number of games will be 7. And we're told that the mean score will be 4. So we work out the mean like this. It's the total goals divided by the number of games. So we've got 4 is equal to x. I can't help putting algebra in. You don't have to do algebra for this, by the way, but I find it clarifies the way we think about hard problems. 4 is equal to x divided by 7. So that means that the total number of points scored has got to be 28, right? That makes this question really easy. All I have to do is go back in here and look at how many goals they've scored in the first 6 games, right? So they had 0 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus 6. So adding those up, we get 4, and 6 is 10. So that's 18. So They must have scored, sorry, it's not goals, it's tries. We're talking about rugby. 10 tries in the 7th game. Right, because we wanted to have 28 minus 10. So 28 minus 18 equals 10. That is the key calculation in there. Sorry about the messy working. Hopefully yours doesn't look like that. All right, on to question number 10. Now, this is one where we start to display information in a bar chart. Now, we know that you guys are going to go through school using software to do this, so we're not spending much time doing bar charts by hand, but we're just doing a tiny little bit of that in Year 9 to make sure that you can all do it. So what we need to do here, and what's quite hard for me to do nicely on this tablet, is to write in some labels. I'm doing a bar chart, so when I do a bar chart, that's the one where I separate the values. And I'm choosing that here because these things are qualitative variables. We've got all the different colours, red, blue, green, yellow, orange, and others. So I don't want to have them all grouped up together because they're separate things. You're going to see the difference when we come on to looking at histograms using continuous data. So in here, there are a couple of things that we need to do. And I'm going to go through this slowly, and you're going to find this boring, but this stuff is really important. We need to label our axes. So down here, we're going to put the colour. And up here, we're going to put the frequency. And on the top, we would put a title. And we're going to put a title here just from what we know. And we're going to put the title, favourite colour, and we might put who it's from for, let's say, 9 WEKA, even though it's probably not. So remember when you did this kind of stuff back at primary school, you might have done a science fair project where you did a bar chart. This is how you did it. Now, what I need to have down here, though, that I can't fit on, is I need labels. So I'm just going to write R, B, G, Y, O, and O. And then I need to draw a bar that represents the frequency for each one. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video and do that now. Okay, so there we go. There's your bar chart. Look, there are a few things about that I don't like. The bars have gone a little bit over the squares. Try to colour inside the lines, even though you know that I'm really bad at doing that. The last question has been chopped off when I put it into the tablet, and I think maybe also on the version I threw onto Google Classroom. But we can use that bar chart to start looking at probabilities. So this is a relational skill. It's not a unistructural one, but we can think about what's the probability that a student selected, and I'm going to choose green as his or her favourite colour. So let's just make up a question. Right, so to do that, what we have to do is say how many students were in the group. So let's add them up. We've got 2 and 5 is 7, 11, 18, 18 and 9 is 27, and 8 is 35. So we've got a total of 35. So how many chose green? So imagine that you're putting all of those names of kids and their favourite colour into a hat, and you're pulling out one and looking at what it is. So we're going to write this, probability of green is equal to 4 out of 35. Okay, so this notation here, this P bracket thing, is how we write probabilities, and you'll see that later on this year and next year. Okay, if I wanted to do the probability that they chose orange, I'd look here and I'd go, well, 9 out of 35 chose orange. So P of orange would be 9 out of 35. Now I'm just going to peek at the next question and see if I've got time to do it, but I don't think I do. Okay, so this one is moving on to group frequency diagrams, which is sometimes called histograms. I'm going to do this one in part 3 of this video, and that'll be later on today. So go away and try the last 6 or 7 questions. They definitely get trickier. Once we get onto these extended abstract problems, you may find that you want to start using some algebra to solve them. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you find any mistakes, because I've done this quite quickly.